welcome to episode number 93 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented to you by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. Wherever you listen to podcasts is where you can hear this voice every single week, just like you are right now. Also, if you're listening on Saturday on the radio, hello to you too. This is Jason Finelli, the esports and gaming insider for Fox PHL The Gambler. I have a great show for you here this week, leading up to what should be a good weekend of esports and video games action. PAX East 2022 happening up in Boston right now. I am here in Philly, will not be attending the event this weekend. I have a pretty good reason. We'll get to that in a second. But I do have a preview of the League of Legends Spring Final, which happens this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. 3 teams remain in the LCS Final. We'll go over all 3 teams and who I think is going to win. We'll talk about the upcoming AEW video game. There seems to be some rumblings happening. The name has been revealed. They were recording crowd chants at the event last night, or Wednesday night, if you're listening to this as it went live. So Wednesday night during their Dynamite and Rampage tapings, they started recording fan chants. So I'm going to get into some things that I want from that game when it releases, whenever that may be. And then finally, we're going to talk about music at the end of the show, one of my favorite topics in video games, but not in the way that you might think. So, before we do any of that, let's get right down into the 6 in 60 seconds. Valorant Champions Tour Masters Reykjavik has its final 4. Loud from Brazil taking on North America's Optic Gaming in the upper bracket, and Japan's Zeta Division playing Paper Rex from Singapore in the lower. New York City will host the Call of Duty League's 4th major, July 14 to 17, with the actual venue being announced soon. Data analytics firm Newzoo projects that the esports industry will earn nearly $1.4 billion in 2022, a record, which will then increase to nearly $1.9 billion in 2025. 343 Industries has announced 3 new modes coming to Halo Infinite: the returning King of the Hill, a team-based King of the Hill called Land Grab, and a Battle Royale-style mode called Last Spartan Standing. Activision has also confirmed that Godzilla and King Kong will be invading Call of Duty Warzone via the brand new Operation Monarch story chapter on May 11th. And finally, Fortnite has announced a collaboration with the Wu-Tang Clan, bringing skins and other cosmetics themed around the legendary group to the game on April 23rd. Those are your 6 in 60 seconds. And the 6 in 60 seconds are brought to you by the St. Francis Players, Springfield, Delaware County, and the 61st production in their history, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, starting April 22nd, tonight, if you are listening to this podcast as it drops on your assorted podcast service. Tonight, 7:30, Saturday, April 23rd at 7:30, Sunday, April 24th at 2, and then the following weekend, 29:30 at 7:30, and May 1st at 2 o'clock matinee. Wonderful show made by wonderful people. Yours truly is in the cast as well, as is my little girl, her first ever stage show. So maybe I'm a little biased when I make this little hit here. So come out, come see a great show. stfrancisplayers.org is where you can get tickets if you're in the Philly area and you want to have a nice night of entertainment. St. Francis Players, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, this and next weekend. Yes, folks, those are your 6 in 60 seconds for the week. Valorant Champions Tour. Still some great action there. I love this Loud team from Brazil, and I love the underlying story of APAC and Japan rising, with them being half of the Final 4. Very much looking forward to see how that finishes out as the tournament continues. Also, Call of Duty League in New York City. I'll take that. Maybe I'll try and scoot up there this summer, see what's going on in the Call of Duty League live and in person. But let's get into the first topic of our show. Let's talk about the League Championship Series. League of Legends North American Division, the LCS, has their spring split final this weekend. Went from 10 teams in the actual LCS down to 6 that qualified for the spring split playoffs, and now we are in the final 3 for the final happening this weekend. Saturday will be the first match, the last match in the lower bracket, the losers bracket. A best of 5 between Team Liquid and Evil Geniuses, with 100 Thieves waiting in the finals for the winner of that lower bracket match. Now, there's a lot to look at here as far as who I think is going to take this crown. And to be completely honest with you, although 100 Thieves did squeak out that win against Team Liquid, I'm not entirely convinced they'd be able to do it again if Team Liquid beats Evil Geniuses. I'm just going to say it flat out here. I am putting my faith into Team Liquid to take this spring split when all is said and done. They were number 1 in the ranking coming in. Evil Geniuses was 4. 100 Thieves was 3. 100 Thieves did complete the win in round 2, the winner's bracket final, let's call it. 100 Thieves did score the upset to get into the grand finals. But I still feel like Team Liquid, why do I keep saying Team Wicked? They're not wicked, they're liquid. Come on, Jay. Team Liquid is just far too powerful, if you ask me, to let that happen again. And it is another best of 5 in those finals. And I just feel like the revenge storyline is there. I feel like Team Liquid plays too well to let that happen again. And I really am thinking that it's going to be Team Liquid here taking the victory. But they have to get through Evil Geniuses first. That is something they already did, to be fair. They did beat Evil Geniuses in the first round of the winner's bracket, Team Liquid did. So the revenge factor could be here as well. Evil Geniuses trying to get Team Liquid out of the tournament before they move on to play 100 Thieves. This is also Team Liquid's first match since that 100 Thieves loss, while Evil Geniuses had to scratch and claw through FlyQuest, who they beat 3-1, and Cloud9, who they swept 3-0, to get to this point. So there may be some momentum in Evil Geniuses' side. Of course, all these matches were last weekend. We've had a week to wait, a week to reset momentum, let's say. So this Team Liquid versus Evil Geniuses match on Saturday, and then 100 Thieves versus the winner of that on Sunday. Maybe the momentum thing isn't really a factor. But if we're looking at storylines and we're looking at, power of players and things like that, I do think Team Liquid is going to take Evil Geniuses here. I think that they are not going to allow themselves to be beat once again. I also have to take a look at the spring split record here. I want to make sure I see, like, the head-to-head records and things like that. So Team Liquid, 14-4 throughout the spring standings. And if we're looking at the splits between the two teams, Evil Geniuses and Team Liquid did take it 2-0 in the regular season as well. So stands to reason that Team Liquid should be able to take them in this tournament as well. I will say that Team Liquid and 100 Thieves in that matchup was 1-1. They split in the spring split, while Evil Geniuses beat 100 Thieves 2-0. So what does this mean? This means that if Evil Geniuses can get past Team Liquid, get over that hump, win the best of 5, and take over a team that has basically owned them in every time they've seen them in this spring split, they then have a slight psychological advantage over 100 Thieves, having beaten them 2-0 in the spring split itself. A lot of different aspects to look at this here, but ultimately, I do think that 14-4 record is going to overcome everything else. I do think that Team Liquid is going to push through, and they're going to beat both the Evil Geniuses and 100 Thieves to win the spring split and assert themselves as the number 1 team in the LCS for the spring. Punch their ticket to the Mid-Season Invitational on May the 10th coming up, which I will also be talking about in the next couple of weeks. That is a major tournament from everybody in League of Legends, from the LPL to the LEC, the LCS. In fact, they just made an interesting announcement regarding that today, or yesterday, that the team that's qualified from the LPL, which is the Chinese league, which right now is still being determined. They have not determined who that's going to be yet. Will be able to play from their either the Shanghai home stadium or from the team's hub, depending on who qualifies, in China, because COVID restrictions are so tight there right now that they're not allowed to leave the country. And the Mid-Season Invitational is being hosted in Busan, South Korea. So China will be playing from their home. Riot Games has confirmed that they will keep the ping to a minimum, 35 milliseconds, 335 ms, I believe is what they said, in order to get this match to happen, which is manageable. That is basically what League of Legends games play at online anyway. So They say they can do it. They say they can make it happen for the Chinese team that makes it in. Who that will be, yet to be determined. But we do have some teams that have already qualified for the MSI. We have G2 out of Europe. Europe's number one is G2 Esports. T1 out of Korea. PSG Talon out of the Pacific. A team that plays in the Pacific named after a sports team in Europe, Paris Saint-Germain. Only in esports, baby. Latin America's number one team is Team A's, AZE, but the logo is an ace. That's pretty cool. Turkey's number one team is the Istanbul Wildcats. The Japanese number one team is Detonation FM, which you may recognize from my Rainbow Six Siege coverage. I've seen them there a lot. And Oceanic's number one team is Order. There is one league that will not be presenting a team. That is the LCL, the League of Legends Continental League, because they are based out of Russia. And I don't need to tell you why a Russian team will not be in the MSI. I'm sure you can figure that out for yourself. But as far as teams that are still remaining, teams that are still waiting to qualify, we have a Brazilian team, a Vietnamese team, the North American team, which will be decided this weekend, and the Chinese team, which is still coming and will be playing from home, as we mentioned earlier. But getting back to the spring playoffs here, the spring final, I can't honestly put my finger on why I think Team Liquid's going to get over this. I just think they're a strong team. They've been a strong team in the league since it started in the spring. I feel like they have a good record against both of the teams that are left, with the only exception being their loss to 100 Thieves last weekend in the spring split playoffs. And I just think that strength and that confidence is going to overcome, and they're going to get over the hump and win the spring split playoffs and represent North America in MSI. Could be wrong. Could be any of these teams. Really, there are enough storylines and enough things going on that any of these three teams could represent us in that international tournament. Now, the only hope is that they perform in this international tournament like they belong there, because as we all know, based on Worlds from previous years and MSIs, North American teams tend to struggle in this arena. So hopefully whoever represents us can represent us well. I'm not expecting an MSI win. I think that would be a little too much for a North American team, but hey, a top 4 would be nice. Let's see what they can do. So I am putting my eggs in the Team Liquid basket for the LCS Spring Final. I think that they will beat Evil Geniuses, beat 100 Thieves, and then move on to the MSI on May the 10th. Let me know what you think at Big Man Finale on Twitter. You can tell me I'm an idiot. You can tell me I'm a Team Liquid stan. You can tell me whatever you want, really. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Moving on to our next segment, we're going to talk about the AEW video game, the rumors that are swirling around it, the things that have been happening behind the scenes that have picked up in recent months and weeks, and what I think should come in that game when it does release. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 93. Moving right along here to the second segment of the show, let's talk about All Elite Wrestling. Now, they are coming into town on Wednesday. Dynamite will be live from the Leacourse Center up at Temple University Wednesday, April 27th, starting at 7 o'clock. But that's not what I'm talking about. We may be talking about that next week. Wink. But here I want to talk about the rumors surrounding AEW's upcoming video game. Now, we have heard about this game for a couple of years now. It has been a topic of conversation ever since the AEW All Elite Wrestling started in 2019. We've seen some screens, we've seen some characters, we've seen one teaser trailer, have not seen any core gameplay yet. I think that's the only thing we're really missing from the experience. But with a rumored release date of September and more things coming out about this game, I think now is the time to start talking about things that may be in it and things that I would want in it when the game does launch. So first and foremost, the game is rumored to be launching in September, targeting September for their release, which is ambitious, but it would not be the first time that a game was announced in June and only came out a couple months later. Happens every E3, for better or for worse. So I would not be surprised if they are far enough along in the process that they think they can get it out by June. Would love to see it, but we'll see what happens whenever information about the game finally does come out. Also, this past week's Dynamite and Rampage taping in Pittsburgh, like I mentioned at the top of the show, they've been recording, they asked the crowd to record some chants for some of the wrestlers. A chant for Sting, a chant for A couple other wrestlers, they were asked to do the boom, the Adam Cole boom, and his entrance music. So they're starting to gather certain assets and things that are needed to fulfill the entire experience, which tells me that they have the core stuff down. They have the gameplay system. They have maybe the characters involved, all that stuff. Now they just need the ancillary things surrounding it to pack in there to make the game a complete experience, which is a good sign. Mikey Ruckus, who is the composer of the AEW entrance themes for all the wrestlers, said a while ago that he had recorded all the music he had to record for the game and that he was done, which is, again, another good sign. So, what then do we make of this game? The game is supposed to be called AEW Fight Forever, which is appropriate for many reasons. AEW Fight Forever is a chant that you hear at basically AEW pay-per-view since it started, just because there's been one match that people just don't want to end. Also, Fight Forever means that the abbreviation will be AEW FF, so I'll forever call it AEW Final Fantasy, and that's very apropos for a video game based on All Elite Wrestling. But what would I want in it? What are the things that I am looking for in an All Elite Wrestling video game? So I thought about this for a little bit, and I have 5 things here that I think would be pretty cool. Starting with the core gameplay itself. It sounds to me, just based on rumors and fan requests and things like that, that they're going to be going for a old school, no mercy, WrestleMania 2000, WCW, NWO revenge sort of gameplay style. Very arcadey, not so much on realistic simulation, and I dig that. I think the arcade style gameplay is the way to go. Now, whether it's the N64 style, which I would prefer, or the old SmackDown PS style, both of them are good. I would prefer the N64 style, like I said. But in both regards, you need to really ramp up the ridiculousness of pro wrestling. I've always said that one of WWE 2K's major issues is, unlike other sports games where they are a simulation of a real sport, pro wrestling games are a simulation of a simulation. A simulation that is, to put it plainly, ridiculous. Pro wrestling is, and can be, and will always be, ridiculous. Over-the-top characters in over-the-top fighting situations sometimes. That is what needs to be presented in a video game, and they used to do it very well. But ever since the WWE 2K franchise started getting into the simulation of WWE superstars and trying to make it as real and authentic as possible, it's lost some of that edge. WWE 2K22 brings it back, from what I understand. I have not played it myself, but it does bring that back. I think AEW can take it one step further by emulating that old school style from the Nintendo 64 days. But I don't want that style to come at the expense of certain modes, like Universe Mode, to use WWE again as an example. Universe Mode is great. My GM Mode is back. That's also great. I do want a robust mode selection in this game. Things that are like those previous games. But there's also something, I think, too, that would make AEW unique. I don't think WWE does this. I don't think the WWE games do this, and I feel like it's something that could be taken from traditional sports games that could add a little layer of interest to the AEW video game, and that is weekly adjusted ratings. So say, if we go back a couple of weeks, when Sammy Guevara fought Cody, in Cody's last AEW match, this is just the one that sticks in my head right now. Sammy Guevara wins, so you could adjust his overall stats a little bit for the big win, but you could also make those adjustments in his high-flying attributes because he hit that tremendous cutter off the ladder, or in his durability because he took so many crazy bumps. You could find places in each match involving wrestlers who are in the games to increase or decrease stats as you see fit, thus adjusting ratings every single week, because it's weird to me in a wrestling game where, like, a up-and-comer is doing really, really, really well, but the wrestling game reflects him at his, lesser statistics. So if I want to use him in a match, or her, in a match against a, main eventer, I'm going to get crushed every single time. I feel like professional wrestling, you could adjust those ratings. You could find reasons to adjust those ratings, and you even have the added benefit of extra preparation because, even though this is usually used as an insult against professional wrestling, matches are predetermined. They're scripted. They're choreographed. The wrestlers know what they're going to do before they do it, at least in the results side. So if you're going to give adjustments based on wins and losses, which you already keep as far as the AEW ranking system, you'll know who's winning before the show goes on. If you need that extra time for development, you can use it. And then you can make the adjustments that I mentioned earlier based on what actually happened in the match as you decide to do that. So, for example, if Adam Cole decided he wanted to use a submission finisher as opposed to the last shot, the more he uses it, you could slowly build up his submission and increase his ratings in that regard. I just feel like there's a lot of potential there. I don't think wrestling games really do that, and I feel like this team would be smart enough to figure out how to make that work. In the same regard, there is another stat that I feel like could be implemented in this, but done so in a way that is not as binary as it is usually portrayed, and that is a spectrum of face and heel ratings. So a face-heel spectrum. On one end, you're a dastardly heel. On the other side, you're a white meat babyface. Heel and faces now are not cut and dry. You don't have the typical winner Hulk Hogan and then the bad guy Sergeant Slaughter WrestleMania 7. You don't have that anymore. Everyone seems to fall either somewhere in between, leaning one way or another. And I think that can be reflected. If you have a character who is doing heel things but is still a fan favorite, I feel like a spectrum could reflect that. If you have a guy who's supposed to be a white meat babyface but gets mixed reactions, you could reflect that in this spectrum. If you're doing a MyGM mode or a Universe mode, you could tweak it based on where you want the wrestler to be on the heel-face schedule, more than just selecting heel or selecting face. If you don't want them to go all the way heel, but you want them to start cheating and making a slow burn week to week to week until they're full heel, a spectrum would allow you to do that. It also more accurately reflects what's on TV. If a character is going through a slow burn heel or face turn, slowly ticking that spectrum, one end or the other, will reflect in the game what's happening in real life. And I think that, for all the arcadey nonsense that I just mentioned previously about the game, I think at least this part of it, people want it to be real. I mean, it's easy to switch from face to heel in your Universe mode or your MyGM mode, but making it a core rating where you don't have to do that anymore if you don't want to, I think that'd be cool. I think that would be an interesting little wrinkle that they could add to this game to make it a little more interesting. Not that it won't be interesting anyway. Fourth, I just want all the match types. I want single, tag, tornado tag. I want triple trios. I want, Royal Rumbles. They can't call it that. They probably call it the Double or Nothing Battle Royal or just Battle Royal. I want cage matches. I want cell matches. I want blood and guts. I want all of it. If it's a match they would put on TV, I want it in my game. First Blood. First Blood is a match type that is seldom used anymore. Honestly, I'm surprised AEW hasn't used it yet. I would love to see a First Blood mode in the AEW game. Make it a Texas Death Match with blood rules. The first one make the other one bleed wins. Texas Death Match is another great example. I just want as much match variety as possible because people love that. People love to be able to choose as many different matches as they want, especially if you're putting in some sort of Universe or MyGM mode. People want to be able to have those feuds that go from, singles matches to run-ins and escalate until they get to the big, bad, no escape, steel cage or Hell in a Cell match. Not that it can be called that. Hell in a Cell match to end the feud, the way it used to be, the way they used to book, not to get into the whole wrestling used to be better when I was a kid. Everything was better when I was a kid. Life was better when I was a kid. That argument's irrelevant. Everybody says that. Not to say that life is not good now, just to clarify, but everybody says everything that they ever did was better when they were a kid. It's just a part of life. Excuse me. But I feel like giving people as many match types as you possibly can and letting them build their storylines up to it would be incredible. I feel like that would make this game even better. Just stuff it to the gills with modes. Now, would I be okay with a limited... The question that you have to ask yourself is, would I be okay with a limited match type selection and more wrestlers, where the match types come as DLC? Or would I prefer a smaller roster with all the match types up front and then the roster filled in through DLC down the line? I would say the latter. Get the match types in there first, let people know the game is fun to play and that it's worth their investment, and then bring in the DLC later on. But if they want to load the roster first and then add the match types later, I kind of get that too. I just feel like they'll have more success with having all the match types in place and adding wrestlers later. And then finally, and this one would take some hoops to jump through, but if anybody can make it happen, it's Tony Khan and his all-elite staff. If you're going to collaborate in real life, I want you to collaborate in-game. One of the big announcements from this past Wednesday night in Pittsburgh was the announcement of an AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling co-sponsored pay-per-view Sunday, June 26th from Chicago. If this collaboration is going to continue after June, or even if it doesn't, to be honest, I feel like there is potential for NJPW wrestlers in AEW Fight Forever, if that's what it's called, as DLC. I feel like you could, if you're going to partner with all these different organizations in the real world, you could do the same and get them in via DLC. Now, ROH is not a problem. You own ROH now. You could even have your own like ROH division. You could do an AEW versus, you could possibly do an AEW versus ROH angle in Universe Mode. You can include that. ROH is not an issue. It's the NJPWs. It's the MLWs. It's GCW. It's whoever they decide to collaborate with, whether they bring them in through Dark or what have you. If they collaborate in real life, adding them into the game would just make it that much sweeter. Now, I assume that there will be some sort of character customization tool, which is a big thing in wrestling games, and you'll be able to make all these characters. Maybe that's how you do it. Maybe you license their gear, or you get their taunt movements or their entrances or things like that, instead of getting the wrestlers themselves, if that's less expensive, and let the community creators create the wrestlers themselves. We know they're going to be able to do it. But for me, it would be awesome if there would be an NJPW pack in All Elite Wrestling Fight Forever, just to put another period, another stamp on the partnership that was announced this past Wednesday night. I think it's a great idea. Will they do it? Who knows? But right now, I think it's something they could certainly do. But, of course, we won't know anything until the game is officially announced or released, or we see some gameplay. Like I said, we haven't seen any gameplay yet. But these are some things that I would like to see in All Elite Wrestling Fight Forever, if that's what it's called. Hit me up at Big Man Finelli if they are things that you want to see, if there's anything that you in particular think would be a good idea. Or if you just want to see some gameplay. I definitely want to see some gameplay. I think it's time, especially if they're targeting September, as the rumors state, or at any time during the fall, to be honest. We need to see some stuff and things. So please, AEW games, let us see your stuff. We want to play your game. We want to see your game. Let's take a look. Now, on the other side, the final segment of the show, as you heard during the 6 and 60 seconds, I'm in a show this weekend. So to honor that, we're going to talk about musical numbers in video games. Some are famous, some are not, some you may have forgotten, some may be stuck in your head as soon as I say it. Stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 93. We are in the final segment of our show today, and we're talking about music. Now, I talk about video game music a lot. Video game soundtracks are one of my favorite things about video games. I used to talk exclusively about soundtracks for GamerNode.com back in the day. I had my own column called Listen Up. They're a big thing for me. Music in general is a big thing for me, including live musical theater. And for the first time in 3 years, my community theater group, St. Francis Players, as I mentioned at the top of the show, is back starting Friday night, April 22nd, going all this weekend and all next weekend. First time I'm ever doing a show with my kid, who turns 6 on opening day. So happy early birthday, Olivia. Oh, happy birthday, Olivia, because this will go up when you're 6. So happy birthday, kiddo. Hope you enjoy the day with me on stage, but enough about that. Let's talk about musical numbers in video games. Believe it or not, there is more than a few examples of video games breaking out into song. And I don't mean like dancing to soundtracks or things like that. I mean full-on vocalized musical numbers. A couple games have had them throughout the years. There are some really weird ones. An old PS1 game called Skull Monkeys is a good example. They had a bonus room where if you got to the bonus room, a James Taylor sounding dude with an acoustic guitar would sing to you about being in the bonus room. That's a weird one. I suggest you look it up. But these 5 here are the ones that came to my head as moments that I remember for better or for worse throughout my gaming experience. There's one in particular that as soon as I say the words, you're going to know what it is. So let's get into it. The first one is an adaptation of a popular song. And I like when games do this. I like when it happens anytime, really. But this one in particular I thought was completely unique. And really, at the time, didn't make sense in the spectrum of the story. But eventually, it made a lot of sense. And that is the Barbershop Quartet in BioShock Infinite singing God Only Knows by, I believe, the Beach Boys. This is a fantastic barbershop number. If you're a barbershop fan, you will really get a kick out of it. It sounds wonderful. It's like 3.5 minutes long, so it's an easy listen. The 4 different voice parts, maybe even 5 different voice parts that there are. Very, very, very cool. It's one of those songs that I keep going back to, even coming up on 10 years after the release of BioShock Infinite. It'll be 10 years old next year. It's just a really, really cool adaptation to hear that song in a barbershop setting. It sounds wildly different than the original, so don't go in expecting to hear what you're used to, but I think it's one that can be appreciated for what it is. And again, as it fits into the overall narrative of BioShock Infinite, whatever you think about that game is pretty cool. I think it's really, really awesome, and I suggest that you seek that out on YouTube when you have a chance. But as for things that aren't so great, so there was a game in 2009 called Rogue Warrior, which some of you may recognize as a series of books based on the life of an actual Navy SEAL and his missions and his stories from his time in the service. 2009, game came out, Rogue Warrior, based on, I guess, what was supposed to be a mission that he actually went on, but it wasn't actually a mission he went on. I'm not sure of the story there. But Mickey Rourke voiced this Navy SEAL. So it's very, of course, as you would expect, very serious, very gritty, very military throughout the entire game. And then you get to the end credits. When you beat the game after 2 to 3 hours, the game itself was very disappointing, just putting that as an aside. You beat the game after 2 or 3 hours, or whatever it was, and you get to the end credits. And when I say military game, military shooter, and end credits, you're thinking like rousing symphonies with big drums and big timpani sounds and rousing, all this stuff. No, it's a funky song. It's got a little funk to it, and superimposed over it are the lines that Mickey Rourke spoke throughout the game, but fit into the rhythm and tune of the song. And the game set a record for how many F words it dropped. How many F-bombs it dropped. I think it did. It was close to it, at least. It dropped a lot of F-bombs. And these F-bombs are flying in this song, too. Funky Credits, it's called. This is one you find on YouTube and you put on when you want to annoy someone. This is a weird song, but they did it. It's something that they did, and I feel like it had to be acknowledged here, even if that was for the wrong reasons. It's a weird piece of gaming history that a lot of people don't remember. But it's definitely worth a listen just to be like, what the hell were they thinking? It's a weird one. So yeah, check that one out. Funky Credits from Rogue Warrior. You will be unpleasantly surprised. Next up is a classic going back to the PC era of the 90s and early 2000s, and a franchise that has just received a brand new game out of nowhere. A couple weeks ago, it was announced that a new Monkey Island game is coming out, much to the delight of older players everywhere. You could hear the chorus of 30-somethings shrieking in delight, while the younger gamers were like, huh, what the heck is this? But A Pirate I Was Meant to Be, which is a fantastic part of Monkey Island, where Guybrush Threepwood is talking to his pirate friends, and they are regaling him with a pirate jig. Every time I play this song, I laugh. I think it's hysterical. I'm laughing just thinking about it. Some of the lyrics in this song are crazy, and it's a lot of swashbuckling pirate fun. Let me look them up right here, right now. Pirate I Was Meant to Be from Monkey Island. Great tune. I'm not going to play it right now, but it's... but they're singing this song to you, and you're trying to add lines to it at points, and they're just like, wow, you're pretty bad at this. But but it's awesome. So you got Edward Haggis and Bill singing with Guybrush, and you're adding the lines as they come up to you. You have to pick between 3 different choices, and if you choose the wrong one, they're just kind of like, no. So there's a pirate I was meant to be, trim the sails and roam the sea. Let's go defeat that evil pirate. We know he's sure to lose because we know just where to fire at. We're thieving bandoliers, a gang of cutthroat mugs. To fight us off, you don't need guns, just jolly good earplugs. Oh, it's great. You need to check this one out just for the classic part of it. And I hope that the new Monkey Island does it again and brings something back, like a sequel or a remix or whatever of this song. I would love it. Oh man, such a good part of that game, which is a great game to begin with. Next one is weird. I'm going to tell you right now, one of the weirdest anomalies in video game history is this next one. The whole game is a weird one, but this in particular is weird inside weird. We're now talking about Conker's Bad Fur Day on the Nintendo 64. So this was a game that was originally supposed to be this cute squirrel named Conker. He's in Diddy Kong Racing. He's big, bright eyes and smile, and he's so cute and wholesome and whatever. But then when his game came out, it suddenly became this raunchy R, sometimes borderline X-rated adventure that was like a satire on the platformers of the time. Another weird spot in gaming history. But in this game was a full operatic by one of the bosses. That boss's name is the Great Mighty Pooh, as in not Pooh Bear, like Pooh. And he's singing about how he's a big old piece of poop. It's weird. It's one of the strangest things you'll ever see in video games. It's one of those things where if you were playing it as a kid and it came up to this part, your parents walked in the room, you'd be like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know why he's singing about being poop, but here he is. Look that one up too. I'm not going to play it here just because there's some expletives thrown in there. It was a mature rated game after all. But look that one up on YouTube when you're done listening to this. If you have never heard it before, you will certainly raise an eyebrow when you hear it for the first time. It is an absolutely weird piece of history, just like the Rogue Warrior one earlier. I like this one a little more. It's just funnier, and it fits into the entire like satire, silliness, R-rated raunchiness of the game, but still very strange. Still just a very, very weird choice. That entire game was a weird choice. And then it came out again for Xbox Live and Reloaded. I think it's backwards compatible now, so you can technically play it in this day and age if you want to on your Series X. Do I recommend it? I don't know. But maybe go check it out. It's just a weird one. It's a weird one. And Great Mighty Pooh is one of the reasons that it's up there. And now we come to the final. The last entry on our list, and the one that, if you're listening to this, is going to be a worm in your ear for the rest of the day, perhaps the weekend. Well, he's finally here performing for you. If you know the words, you can join in too. Put your hands together if you want to clap, and we'll take you through this monkey rap. That's right, it's a Donkey Kong rap from Donkey Kong 64. Why are all these things on 64? It's weird. The DK rap is iconic for all of the best reasons. It's a fantastic song written by Grant Kirkhope. The lyrics are great, going through all the different characters in Donkey Kong 64. The remixed version from Super Smash Bros. Melee, I think, is what really took it into the stratosphere. Fantastic song. Again, one of those songs that you're now thinking of it. If you've heard it before, it's now in your head, and it's not going anywhere, and you're angry about this. You want it to go away, but it's not going away. You're going to go to YouTube, or you're going to go wherever it is. You're going to play it. You're going to listen to it to try to get it out of your head. And then 2 hours later, you're going to be thinking of something else. And then boom, DK Rap is back. Awesome, awesome song. I love listening to it. But again, it's one of those things where if I listen to it once, I have to hear it for the rest of the weekend, or else I'll drive myself crazy with it being stuck in my head. Donkey Kong 64, also a very underrated Donkey Kong game, I feel like, in the pantheon of Donkey Kong games. Overshadowed by Donkey Kong Country a bit when you're thinking about the nostalgic parts of Donkey Kong's franchise, but I do think it's one that holds up even now whether you're talking about 3D platforms or Donkey Kong games in general. So there they are. There's 5 interesting examples of musical numbers in video games. Like I said, one of the other ones was the Skull Monkeys bonus room. That's an interesting one. And then also there was a musical number in Saints Row 4 Get Out of Hell, a separate story, a separate chapter, like downloadable chapter for Saints Row 4. That had a whole musical number in there as well. I think it involved the devil. That one I'm not too familiar with, that's why I didn't include it here, but that's another one that exists as well. But there are plenty of these throughout gaming history. Check them out, seek them out. And I'm looking forward to whoever does it again, whoever the next one to add a musical number into your game is, let me know. I would love to hear it. And again, like I said, this is all in celebration of my theater group being back for the first time in 3 years. Springfield, Delaware County, St. Francis Players. Look us up and check us out if you're in the area. And with that, we are at the end of episode number 93 of Cheese Steaks and Controllers, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio. I am Jason Finelli. I am the esports and gaming insider for Fox PHL The Gambler, and I hope you enjoyed everything that you heard today. If you're listening to my voice right now, as I say every week, thank you. It means you're at the end of the episode, and I appreciate you spending this time with me to learn about all of the biggest things in esports and video games. I hope you have a terrific weekend. I hope you have an even better week right behind it. And we will be back next week for episode 94, perhaps early. Keep an eye on my Twitter at Big Man Finelli, with all of the latest and greatest in the world of esports and video games. Happy birthday, Olivia. I love you. Goodbye.